this is our time. This is our moment. Like people, this has always been the job and it will always be the job when people are hurting to go towards the source of that hurt instead of away from it.
In this episode, we're going to have a conversation with Hannah Cardin. She's a United Methodist minister who has been joining other clergy in peaceful protest and even prayer vigils against ICE there in the Chicago area. They've been gathering outside an ICE facility. There's been a number of incidents there as ICE officials have targeted the peaceful protesters. There was even a minister who was shot in the head with a pepper ball while praying there during a protest. And then Hannah was there a couple of weeks ago, and there was video of her being violently arrested by ICE officials while she was there as part of this peaceful protest. And so I was excited to be able to talk with her about the experience, about why she was there, and also about what she hopes that Christians and especially clergy will be doing in this moment as we're seeing ICE targeting our immigrant neighbors and even co-opting and misusing Bible verses to justify their violence against people in our communities and in our streets. And before we jump into the conversation, I want to remind you that if you haven't done so already, you really should subscribe to Word and Way's award-winning email newsletter, A Public Witness, where we've been telling stories about churches and ministers that have been targeted by ICE and other Trump officials. And also, I have a new book that's just out, The Bible According to Christian Nationalists, that helps you look at the ways that the Bible is being misused by Christian nationalists today in ways that we're seeing continued in the Trump administration by ICE officials and others. And so here's my conversation with Hannah Cardin, a United Methodist minister violently arrested by ICE. Hannah, first of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you, and we're going to be talking about some of your ministry that is not something that you went to seminary necessarily learning how to do.
No class in community defense against ICE, unfortunately, but maybe in the new curriculum. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe unfortunately need to add the what to do when you get arrested and marching in the street and all of that kind of stuff, because we're seeing a whole lot of clergy that are engaging this way.
Yeah.
So before we get to the incident that we're gonna be talking about, I want to set the stage for our listeners and viewers to understand how we got to this moment. So I want to first start with you and your ministry. Tell us about your calling to ministry, the congregation that you're leading. We'll set the stage of what led to the more dramatic moment recently.
So I'm a United Methodist pastor. I grew up in a non-religious family and converted to Christianity in my late teens, in part because I, through luck and the Holy Spirit and a decision my parents didn't know the ramifications of, ended up at a church where the youth group really served people. And when they talked about Jesus, it made me curious, made me feel something warm. And when I had questions and objections about the things I was hearing I had never heard before, the pastor really received those things with open arms. And so I was really lucky to start off in a community that thought that the way that we treat each other at coffee hour and the way that we treat each other as a community and as a nation and as a world are connected and are both a part of faith. And I've been lucky to be able to be a part of churches that have felt that way ever since. So I've been a pastor for 12 years now, and have served multiple really wonderful communities in the Chicago area. Chicago is now my home, and I currently am at the United Church of Rogers Park, which is a community hub in the heart of a neighborhood that has no majority race, no majority ethnicity, and just a huge percentage of people who are Americans who were not born here. And so we have been particularly hard hit by the way that Chicago has been treated in the last month or two. And for years, this has been a neighborhood and a community that has been hard hit. And so being in relationship with my neighbors has meant that this matters a lot to me.
Yeah, and obviously the last month or two, as you noted, has been particularly significant. But I mean, we've seen an escalation of ICE and Trump administration policies all year. So I'm curious, what has that been like, particularly ministering in your context, which, as you notice, it obviously all these things are impacting different communities in different ways, and your community, your congregation, I suspect, has been feeling the changes for months in ways that others were not.
Yeah, I think the first place we saw it and have been seeing it for a long time and saw it uh, months ago and years ago is in just the worry
Mhm.
and the anticipation, this sense that we have to start planning for the worst instead of planning for the best. That's one of the things that is really sad to me about right now is that so many people, when they think about the future, are thinking about how to mitigate against the worst thing that could happen because it seems so likely instead of being able to imagine like bright, joyous futures, which is such a big part of being a person and being a person of faith. And so we saw it first in the worry, and then it started to get practical. Like, who at school needs to know if somebody's parent can't show up? How are we going to communicate with each other? And then I do want the world to know what they have chosen to do to Chicago in the last 6 weeks is wildly different and is wildly different than anything I've ever experienced in my life. I'm 39 years old, and I am living in a city that is under attack from the federal government. It feels like a battle. It feels tense and anxious all the time. You never know when you're going to walk out the door and somebody might be kidnapped next to you. We have had to run out of worship because we heard whistles a half a block away and knew what that meant and knew what it could mean for other churches in our area and for our own. So I have seen some of the best of humanity in the last couple of weeks, but it also has been a really new experience. And I want people to know how scary it is, how different it is from anything we've experienced in my lifetime, and that I think they want to do this in every community. So everybody's got to be prepared.
And so I actually what I wanted to ask you about next, anyways, this idea of being prepared and particularly thinking about congregations. You just mentioned about, being in worship, because one of the very first things, as you know, that Trump did this year was to rescind the policy that would prevent ICE and immigration officials from conducting raids or arrests on church property, which is not just in church buildings, but also on the church parking lots. But it also means that they are now free to come in during a worship service and conduct a raid. And there have been a few incidences on church property as well as involving church worship services. So, what, how has that impacted your congregation, and what steps have you been taking to try to be prepared, never knowing if ICE might show up in your building?
Many faith communities in our area are taking a lot of the same steps, which is to learn from each other and to learn from the people who've been defending immigrant rights in our city for a really, really long time. That's one thing I really want to put on people's radar if you want to prepare yourself for if this happens in your community is there are people who really know and have thought about all of this for a long time, and they probably are in your community, and you can find them and they want to help you.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel yourself.
You don't have to come up with this all by yourself. And investing in relationships is the most important thing you can do to prepare for any kind of crisis. And I think that's particularly true for this one. People investing in their friendships with other worshipers, but then also investing outside of your community. I see people now all the time just walking up to each other. Oh, you got an orange whistle. Do you know what's going on? Can you tell me how to get involved? And with churches, I think that was really true. Clergy started reaching out to each other, worshipers started reaching out to each other saying, this is what I'm scared of. Do you have a plan for it? And people who had to develop plans many years ago because of who their community is, were just really generous to share with everyone. Here's what we think. Here's what we think we can do, so that we're equipping each other and training each other for things that should never, ever happen. And even the ways that we've equipped and trained each other will not make any, if those experiences happen, they will be some of the most traumatic experiences that our community will ever go through. We should not have people coming into worship services or schools or daycares or yards or front doors, all
Hospitals
the
used to be
places they've
also
come,
protected. Yeah.
hospitals, all the places they've come to kidnap and terrorize people. It puts everyone at risk. Everyone, no matter how far away you think you are from an immigration journey, it puts you at real risk to have those places that should always feel safe become places of danger.
And I want to take a moment just to kind of note this, because I think it is important to know that there's a lot of legal challenges, obviously, and a number of United Methodists have been involved in, and basically nearly every mainline Protestant Christian denomination has somebody involved in one of these lawsuits trying to block the efforts to allow raids in churches. Thus far, most of those haven't yet progressed. The Cooperative Baptist Fellowship, some associations of Quakers, and a Sikh temple in California are currently protected by an injunction. Unfortunately, the rest of the bodies, including in your congregation, are not protected at the moment. So I do think it's important to note, like, there's a lot of clergy and a lot of denominations that are pushing back, but at the moment we're in this position where most congregations are not protected from an ICE raid.
And here in Chicago, we have seen that they are consistently breaking the injunctions and restraining orders that they're under.
Right.
So it's both very good work. Like, I think that the faith communities that are pushing that forward are doing critical work in this moment. And even if they get those protections are not being respected. The law is not being respected in anything that we're seeing or experiencing right now. And I think it's important for people to know that, not to be scared, but just to prepare yourself. I'm going to have to find that Christian spirit to, like, act in ambiguity and confusion. And I'm going to have to be trusting the Holy Spirit to guide me through it, because the rules might not be applying to these situations right now.
Yeah, and then I think it's also important to also note, as you and other clergy have been on the front lines protesting what ICE is doing, we're also seeing ICE and the administration co-opting Bible verses to baptize the work that they're doing as if this is God's will. I've written about this at a public witness, and others have been noting the Department of Homeland Security, as well as other agencies. But for this conversation, the Department of Homeland Security has been putting out propaganda videos, putting up Bible verses on the screen while images of militarized officers, hunting, flying in helicopters, hunting for immigrants, or bursting into buildings and shooting guns. And, all of this is happening. I want to ask you about that aspect too, because it's honestly in my opinion, it's one of the most heretical and just gross things we have seen from this administration all year. And this is really ramped up. We saw these videos start with the Department of Homeland Security in July and August, and the Department of War and others have started doing them as well. But this is just in the last couple of months, this effort to really kidnap. I mean, here they are kidnapping people on the streets. They're also trying to kidnap our Bible verses and co-opt them into justifying this imperial violence.
Our whole faith tradition, our whole existence. Jesus warned us about this one, right? This is not new news. They are desperate to justify behavior they know to be wrong, that they know to be immoral, and that everyone watching knows to be immoral and wrong and unchristian. And there's
you don't hide your face if you know you're doing something right. The people running around in masks are generally not the good guys in the story.
I don't have to hide my job from anybody I know, because I'm not worried about what they'll think of it. And we read this, if anybody's in a lectionary church, we recently read this verse about self-justification, right? The one who stands before God and seeks to say, I do it all right. I'm justified before you. Everybody else is worse. Versus the person who knows there can be no justification except God's, and who simply stands before God and says, God, be merciful on me, a sinner. The Christian spirit is a democratic spirit, and it has never been clearer to me than now. You are better than no one. You are worse than no one. You are made by God in equality with all of creation. And anyone who is trying to say, no, don't worry about that person crying. No, don't worry about that person being ripped away from their child. No, don't worry about how it looks like they're hurt when that person put their knee on their neck. That was a worse person. So you don't have to worry about it. That was a bad person. So you don't have to listen to the Holy Spirit telling you, oh no, maybe this is wrong. They are desperate to justify it because they know that God will not and they cannot. And I think the more aggressive you see them being about that, the bigger a sign it is of how far they've strayed from who God is and from who God invites us to be.
Yeah, I don't know. It's that Shakespeare, thus thou dost protest too much. It seems like they're trying extra hard to make themselves out to be holy here.
Yeah, and it's the opposite of holy. It's truly just like everything the Bible has ever warned us against. You were a stranger in the land of Egypt. Treat others as you would want to be treated. Without love, you are a clanging cymbal. Jesus and his mom and dad fleeing certain death into Egypt. There's no part of our witness of lived experience as a community or of tradition in text or worship that justifies what we're seeing. In fact, it all stands firmly against it as the thing we ought to fight as Christians.
So let's talk about then you moving from preaching about this, from your pulpit and in the sanctuary to your public witness in the streets. I mean, obviously we've seen a number of people of various faith traditions and none that have been protesting in Chicago and other places across the country. And we've seen clergy at the front lines. It feels like particularly in Chicago, there have been a lot of clergy there engaged. There's Reverend David Black, a Presbyterian pastor who people probably have seen the video of him getting shot in the head with a pepper ball. There's another minister who was just now recently also sprayed, United Church of Christ minister, and Reverend Bautista. And then there's also video of you being violently arrested. I want to get to that incident first, but first I want to ask you about why you decided to show up, especially seeing the scene, seeing the way people are being treated for peaceful protest, why you decided that you needed to show up there as well.
So first I want to say, in a testimony to patience and believing in justice, even when it seems so far away, there have been Christians praying for an end to that facility for the entire 19 years that it has existed. There's a Catholic prayer group that has met every Friday there since it opened, praying for the people inside and praying that they will, as Jesus promised, be free. So many of us in the last few months have joined that witness to try and force change in our community, that this place that detains people in deplorable conditions, people tearing them away from their families and their communities to be in a place with no beds, no food, bugs. We have joined the fight to see that is ended, but there was a holy remnant for a really long time. and I want people to know that, because if you're a part of a holy remnant, you never know. You never know when that group is going to grow. And so I just really respect and love the people who are a part of holy remnants like that. And the reason that we're there, for folks who are outside of the area, Department of Homeland Security agents have hit, truly at this point, every neighborhood and suburb in the Chicago metro area. Everyone has been hurt in some way, some much more than others. They are very clearly trying to target Black and Latino communities, as well as obviously Latino people everywhere, for particular terror. And everywhere has been hit. And what will happen is people will be out on the streets to try and stop their community members from being kidnapped. You'll hear, oh, wait, maybe I saw someone over on this corner. You'll rush to that corner, and it turns out they were 1 block north and they snatched someone. I truly believe that the neighborhood defense work people have been doing has stopped people from being kidnapped. It has been critical protective work. People have used whistles, love, and connections with each other to protect people. And they are so persistent and so cowardly, just like snatching anyone they see from an alley, that still some people get taken from everywhere. And they all, or most, go to this place, to this one ICE facility that should not exist, that never should have existed, that, in my opinion, doesn't accord with Illinois law, which says that we will not facilitate deportation in any way. And so people get kidnapped and we know that they're there. And so that's why I want people who see these images to know that's why you're seeing faith leaders, regular people, elected officials from all over the area show up in this one spot. It's because it's where they're taking our friends and family. It's where they're taking our community members. It's where we know that the bad thing is happening. And so for me, everyone has their own role to play. And so not everyone can do everything. But as a community, we have to do both. We have to try and stop the bad thing. And we always have to be following the bad thing as far up the river as we can to figure out how we can stop it at the beginning. And for me, this facility is the beginning. And so when someone invited me there, I felt like I had to go. I also am a white US citizen with a really supportive family, church, and denomination. And so taking on a public and riskier role is something that I can do for my community. And so it feels like I kind of gotta.
Yeah, I think that's such an important note to highlight for those who, like us, are white American. We were born here, right? Our citizenship isn't at risk or at question like it is for so many others that are being targeted. We have an extra responsibility to be able to stand into this moment, because while anyone can be targeted, we do have layers of protection and privilege that others don't. And I think that's a really important, reminder to those of us with this kind of privilege in this moment. So on Friday, October 17th, you're there with other clergy to have a worship service outside of, that was the plan, to have a worship service, kind of this, I love this idea of public protest worship. I mean, it feels like stuff that we read in some of the prophets in the scripture. And things kind of went sideways. I wonder if you can kind of walk us through what happened. And again, and I'll put links to stuff in the show notes. There's a video of you being violently arrested. So this is not just like you're just, telling us a story. We have this footage. We know how they treated you.
Yeah. For that day, I really would encourage people to watch the video and to look at the pictures, because it didn't happen to just me. It happened to a lot of people.
Yep.
And it's part of being a Christian is telling the truth, and part of being an American is talking about it when you see injustice. And so we just have to be able to protest. But I actually want to go a couple weeks back, because I've been out there for several weeks. And one of the really beautiful things about the faith community's presence there is that every Friday morning there's been a different expression of faithful witness that this place is not right, that what it's doing is not right, and that its work must be ended. And that has included a really beautiful Jewish prayer service, a flower communion from the Unitarian Universalists, a communion service from us, a Mennonite song service. There have been so many beautiful expressions of faith in that space that have also said, we continue to be in community and communion with detainees. We will not allow them to be forgotten. We will not allow them to be erased. Who we're here for is the people who are being hurt, which is the people who are kept here, kidnapped from their families, and the people who love them, who often right now don't have access to them, aren't allowed to visit, aren't allowed to bring medicine. So there had been a lot of beautiful spiritual expressions there. And I want to encourage people to be creative as they think about how you might bring witness to the places that are doing harm and evil in your community. There's lots of rituals you do all the time that might have a place in bringing to light how you're in community with the harmed and where morality calls us. And I had experienced extraordinary violence in that place many times. So uh, there have been some videos of ICE. Many people have probably seen the video of ICE shooting Reverend David Black in the head with pepper balls, which is extraordinarily dangerous and not a part of protocol under any circumstances, certainly not under the circumstances where you're looking at someone praying. And the level of violence there has been unlike anything I've ever seen in a protest situation. I have been pepper bulleted. I have watched people be pepper bulleted while standing, while talking, while singing, while praying, simply existing. And I've watched whole groups be tear gassed, seemingly out of the frustration of the agents who were there that we dared to say that what they were doing was wrong. I have never seen any kind of safety situation created there except by the people who call themselves law enforcement. They are the ones who have harmed people, who have caused risky situations. And I think that's just really important for people to know the kinds of violence that have happened there and that they've happened to everyone. They are not one-time incidents. The videos and photos you're seeing are reflective of big, repeated patterns.
Yeah, I think it's a great reminder that for every video and photo we have, there are many more incidences that aren't getting recorded.
Yeah.
So as you're being arrested on the video, you can be heard first saying what you're doing is wrong, more to them, and then almost the cry, lament, prayer, God stop them.
Yeah.
I
I also
wonder,
prayed.
and I know this was your first time being arrested before. You've been a law-abiding pastor, and now you have this on your record. What can you share about that moment?
I was praying. I was praying, God, please don't let them hurt these protesters. Let them witness and let them say what is wrong about what ICE is doing. I also prayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Like it's the oldies but the goodies that really come to you in moments of crisis, the ones that just come to your heart and come to your spirit. The thing that has been the most remarkable to me is what has happened since that day, which is my bishop called me to pray with me. And I have had people from faith communities all over the country and a couple from other countries reach out to say, we're so glad that you were there. We're so glad that people are standing up, that people are protesting, that people are trying to stop what's happening. We love you. We care about you. Because of Church World, we've gotten casseroles. We've gotten apple crisps, and it is hard to feel that things are not happening as they should. But what happened to me is so small compared to what's happened to so many families in our area and in our country. The only way I can look at it is just as hope that it can be one puzzle piece in bringing people's attention to the overwhelming evil and sin that's happening. And that maybe people know it's not so bad to take a risk. You gotta say no to what needs to be said no to. And people will be there for you.
So since your arrest, you made a comment that I wanted to highlight, because I think we've kind of gotten close to saying this as well in this conversation, but I think it's really important to highlight. You said, as you were reflecting on this, I hope if anyone sees this video and is disturbed by it, what they think about it is that if they are willing to do that to clergy in broad daylight, imagine what they are doing to detainees in the dark. And I know this is the whole reason why you were there. You were showing up for others, and I appreciate the fact that even in this moment, it's not about you; it's about those that you're standing up for. So I wanted to ask you about that, because that is something we don't see. That we have video of you being arrested. We're not seeing what's happening as people are being detained for months upon months without trial, without access to an attorney, without access to spiritual advisors and clergy. Catholics were recently turned away. They were trying to serve communion there in the facility and were denied that access. people are being deported, sometimes to a country they've never been to, and just kidnapped and dropped off without any resources. So all these things that we don't see.
That's exactly right. And that they are trying to hide in order to dehumanize one segment of the population. The reason that they are doing these things in the dark, I do think that if Americans really knew what was going on, there would be wide objection, and there already is. I mean, that's in Chicago, where we've been really up close to this. It is remarkable to me how unified our whole area is. No, this is not okay. We do not want this out, done, end. And I think if more people saw it up close, everyone would feel that way. And the reason that they hide it is both to escape accountability and scrutiny and people knowing what they're doing, but it's also to say we are allowed to hide these people because they don't matter. It's back to that message that I think this administration is trying to make the heart of all of what they do, which is some people count and some people don't. Some people are good and some people aren't. Some people are worthy and some people aren't. And absolutely every time throughout human history that anyone has had that approach, it has ended in sickness, sin, death, and evil. It is wrong. And they are justifying racially profiling all Latino people and then hiding them because they think that they can convince people some humans aren't as human as others. And so we're allowed to hide them and do whatever we want. And I think every single one of us has the opportunity to say, I will not allow that. I will not fall for it. I simply won't fall for it. All of us are human. All of us are worthy. All of us are good. No one deserves a jail cell. No one deserves to be put into a brick building against, there have been some reports, hundreds of others in a room that is built for 80 without access to spiritual care, legal care, medical care, or simply being seen as a human being. They're not respecting people's rights in the streets, and they're not respecting people's rights in these facilities. And I do think it's just true. Any video you've seen that distresses you of any of what has happened, what is happening behind closed doors has to be worse. And so let that be your guide as to how much action you think you should be taking in this moment, is that whatever you're seeing, what is actually happening is worse. And we can simply know that because we know our history.
Yeah. So you've already done this some, but I was planning to ask you as a close. So I'll still ask in case there's more you want to say. What's your encouragement for others to get involved, and all Christians, but particularly to clergy? How would you encourage them to? Because I mean, we're trying to encourage them to get involved, and we're telling the story about people getting shot in the head with a pepper ball, and you're getting tear gassed and arrested. So encourage them nonetheless, because it doesn't always end that way. Why show up in this moment?
So I think, first of all, the kinds of things that we've experienced are not the only way to show up in this moment. Like, everybody has their own risk assessment and their own things that are going on, and there are lots of ways to participate. So I have in my community, there's pastors who are quite at risk, right, of the same forces of evil that we're trying to fight. Many of them have made whistle kits that they can then give to people who are a little less at risk, who can use the whistle kits on the street. And then there are people who are a little less at risk than that, who can then go to these places that people are trying to warn against and be in public saying this is wrong. Everybody has a different situation, but there's 1,000 different ways to help. Bringing groceries to people who can't leave the house right now. Walking kids to school whose parents are afraid to leave their buildings right now. So there is a role for every single human being. There's somebody out there who thought to themselves, oh, hey, whistles are seeming really helpful. What if I made a cartoon about how to use them? And that's their gift, and that's what they're bringing. There are people on bikes who go to tamale stands and buy them out in the morning so that they don't have to risk being on a street corner all day. There's something for everyone. And the way to figure out how to help is to just start talking to your neighbors. Like truly just approach people on the street. Are you worried? Are you upset? Me too. Let's talk about how to do something about it. Relationships. But to clergy in particular, what I would say is, this is our time. This is our moment. Like people, this has always been the job and it will always be the job when people are hurting to go towards the source of that hurt instead of away from it. But also I have been extraordinarily surprised and also really moved by how much people want to see people like us. You know, I got ordained in 2013. I kind of knew what I was getting into, right? I loved Jesus Christ, but I thought that I was in for a life of sweet older ladies with pies and crumbling brick buildings that had bad tuck pointing. Like that, like I knew that I was entering a post-Christendom something. And every single time I have been out there on patrol or at a protest, I have had people who are not religiously affiliated come up and thank me for so publicly bringing morality, God, and community to these spaces where people are trying to say that none of those things exist anymore. People are desperately seeking something that reflects the gravity of what they're experiencing, how evil it is, but also how hopeful it feels to join in community for goodness. And there's a real opportunity here for clergy to use the really unique role we've been given in the world to create exactly the kind of change that we have always hoped we could in Jesus Christ. Do it with friends. Don't do it alone. We have group chats of faith leaders who are doing this stuff, and none of us try and figure it out by ourselves. It's all together, which is the Christian way, to do things together, haltingly, experimentingly. Some of the stuff we've tried has not worked out. Okay, try a new thing. Just don't stop trying until the evil is ended or at least obstructed in some way. Because we can win this. We can make things better. We can make people safe. And we can only do it together.
Very good. Well, Hannah, thanks so much for joining us for that word, and even more so for the witness that you're offering. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks to everybody who's listening out there and trying to figure out their one way that they can make something good happen.